I'm still working on some of the molding here. I thought I was done, but I forgot I have to put molding on the inside of the door. So cockbeading or molding, whatever you want to call it. But so here's a piece of 3/16 inch cockbeading, and it's 1.5 inches wide, which is what this area back here for the door is. And it goes up here on the top, and it'll be glued to the underside of this, like so. And then we've got another piece of molding around here somewhere that goes along here, 3/16. We've got a piece of 3/16, which is part of this piece down here on the bottom, and then we have a door stop, which is a custom piece, and it's a piece of 3/16 with the cockbeading on the front, but then it has a 1/4 inch door stop here on the back, and that has to go in here, and they all have to be mitered in the corners. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to glue this piece up to the top, and I got a piece down on the bottom, and just like I did over here, I'm going to cut 45s on there and then match them to the top and bottom piece and glue them in. So that should then finish the molding. Well, I'm starting to work on the bracket feet, and these are blocked, curved bracket feet, and this is one that I completed for practice, and it's reasonably completed, so I'm going to show you what I did to make it. I did some, I've never made one before, and I did some research into it, and to be honest, there's a lot of different ways of making this foot, and I'll show you what I decided to do. I had drawings of the foot of the chest or bureau that I'm reproducing, and on the drawings it showed the width of the foot or thickness of the foot, and it was 1.5 inches. This being the thicker part of the foot up here, and this being the thinner part of the foot down here. So I've got lots of templates here. This is the whole foot. The side feet are not blocked. The side foot is just flat and mitered to fit it, like so. So anyway, I start with a flat piece, 1.5 inches thick piece of wood here, poplar, and I traced a pattern onto the block. Then on the front, I traced the thicker piece here, which I have a whole one, like so. So then I cut them out like doing a cabriolet leg. You've got double curves, so you have a curve this way and you have a curve that way. So what I do is I cut it out along here and then put this back on, tape it on, and then follow this line here. The same is true. The second or smaller line, I don't know if you can see that, is like so. So the front part which is this part here, is carved down That's how you get this. So you have to cut that out, and so you need a line along the front here, the second line for the thinner part, like so. And so this is the part that has to be carved off. So I'm going to show you how I make it. So we're gonna start out by bandsawing these two curves here, and then putting a line down here, and then carving it. So after cutting out this curve here, I taped it back on and refreshed the line here a little bit, because this is what we want to cut out now. So to make that possible, I have this device that I got out of a magazine or something years ago, but it allows me to attach the cabriolet legs vertically, and so this is perpendicular to the table and allows me to keep it at a 90-degree angle. So now it's a matter of cutting out along this top line here. And there you have it. This saw mark here is because I made a mistake. That's why this is still a practice foot, but I was cutting them on the table saw and got a little too far. So now I have two cutouts which will be mitered thusly to end up with the corner bracket. But before I can do that, I have to carve. Hopefully you can see this line here. Here's the smaller template, or the smaller curve, and again it registers off of the back here, since both the large one and the small one register off the back. This is how much material needs to be carved off of the front of here back to about here, which is where we'll use the side template to create the line that goes along there. Also along the top here, we'll slip the leg in underneath the bureau and pick up the curve, so it's straight here, goes straight back, and then it curves out, so we'll be able to trace that. So that'll be the next step. Well, we're almost ready to start carving here. So what I did is I took my other templates and laid them along here and followed the line in there, or I could have used the back template, either or, to trace that line and get the little button on the bottom. Also, I used a square to run that line across there, so that's exactly where we want the curve to run up here at the top, so that it looks like this when it's complete. So now the next thing to do is to take all this material out of here, down to this point here. Well, I attached it to this piece of carving board that I've used over and over again with a couple of screws from underneath to hold it in place. And then I used a 1-inch 3 here to set in the stop cut all along this curve down. It kind of fits it pretty well all along here, except right in here it's too curvy. So then we have our line here on the side, and it's just a matter of taking off some big chunks in the beginning until we get closer to the end. We've got a lot of material to take off down here. Well, you can take it off with whatever chisel you have, flat chisel. It really doesn't matter too much because there's a lot of material that has to come off here. The line is about a 1/2 inch at its deepest point, and at its shallowest here it's about a 1/4 inch. Well, it's coming along. Now you can see the relief that there is there. We've got to get it down to here yet, but I have this little template which follows the curve and is the distance that I took off over here, so to be able to tell when it's straight across and deep enough, this thing needs to get flush with that area. So it's again another template for seeing how deep it is. Well, we're just about there. Just doing a little more cleanup here, but it follows the line pretty well. It's a little high down here. That's better. Now it's got some bumps in here that I can take out with a file. To clean it up. And ultimately it'll be sanded. So now the next thing is to round this over here, so we can carve that. I'm using a 1/2 inch 3 here. It's a little narrow. This is 3/4. But this poplar is pretty soft, so it's not basswood, but imagine doing this in cherry. The mahogany will be tough enough. Anyway, you get the idea. The next step would be to miter this edge. So we'll show you how we do that. Well, I cleaned this up a little bit here so that you'd see what it might look like as a finished product. And then I made this sled that has a 45-degree angle on the base, and the blade is set at 45. So this is where we want to make the cut. And by the mark that's on the sled here, I've got a 45-degree angled line here that should hit that point right there, and of course the rest should follow. So we'll give that a shot here. And it's again got a small screw in the back here that holds it on, and of course this is square on this edge, so that's the reference edge. The saw blade should be a little bit higher. It just barely made it through there. So there's half of it. So now we've got to do the same on this piece, which is the side piece. Well, this is the completed practice foot now, glued up, and I've got it sanded. I did some filing to get the seam nice, and so that's pretty much it, the process of making one practice foot. So like I mentioned earlier that there are many ways of doing it, so I want to look into another one.